Let's talk to Marina Moran. She's a defense expert at King's College in London and joins us now from the Finnish capital, Helsinki. Ms. Moran, good to see you. Russia is claiming small gains in Bakhmut and the Luhansk region. Is this what the feared large-scale offensive is going to look like, or are the Russians just laying the groundwork for something bigger?
Thank you for having me. Well, I think the Russians are trying to regain strategic initiative, which they have lost after their operational pause in summer, and they have faced a series of setbacks. So I think what we're seeing right now is the intensification of fighting. We're seeing the results of the partial mobilization, and I believe this is the first step in a larger offensive that Russia seeks to conduct before the Ukrainian troops receive the tanks from NATO, which should be around mid-April. Russia has a small window of opportunity to capture as much territory as it can, forcing back Ukrainian forces. And Bakhmut is very important for that because that would pave the way to Sloviansk and Kramatorsk for the Russians.
Ukraine is training large amounts of troops abroad on the use of Western equipment that will eventually become very important in the fight to push Russia back. What does that tell us about Ukraine's assessment of the threat Russia poses at this point?
I think at this point, Ukraine has realized that they might need more equipment and a different kind of equipment, not just defensive equipment, to be able to withstand Russian offensives, because Russia has now the superiority when it comes to manpower, and that's where Ukraine is lacking. And another big problem that Ukraine has right now is a shortage of ammunition, and this is where Ukraine is hoping that NATO countries would come in to replenish the Ukrainian stock, because according to some reports, Ukraine will not last long on the stockpiles that it has left, given the intensity of the artillery fights.
Yep, and it's being reported that Germany is having trouble motivating other governments to pledge Leopard 2 tanks to make good on its promise to deliver 2 battalions. What would it mean for Ukraine if they actually did fail to deliver, especially regarding this planned counteroffensive?
Well, it would be very bad for Ukraine because even 2 battalions is not enough. Ukraine has been asking for at least 200 to 300 tanks. Now, it would be getting 2 battalions. And given the way that the Russians are kind of trying to plan their counteroffensive, they're trying to attack in different locations along the front line in order to be able to see where the defenses are at the weakest. So for Ukraine, it would be virtually impossible to stop the Russians if they don't have any means anytime soon. And we shall see what happens with the Leopards. But the sooner they get to the battlefield, the more the Ukrainians might be able at least to hold the ground.
The Ukrainian Defense Minister says his troops need a few months to train with Western weapons before they can push the Russians back. Is there any reason to believe that they won't have that time?
Well, the problem is that the tactical clock is running very fast, and therefore any day, any minute counts. And we're seeing this. The Ukrainian forces are trying to hold Bakhmut. General Zelenskyy is sending more troops to reinforce and to ensure that Bakhmut is not lost. So the sooner they can be trained and redeployed, the better it would be to Ukraine, because, as I said, Ukraine is conducting a very aggressive mobilization right now because it's lacking manpower. And the recruits that the Russia has thrown on the battlefield, maybe they are not as well trained. However, they are offering them a certain advantage. And what Russia is trying to do right now is completely destroy the capability of the Ukrainian forces to fight back, meaning that not only do they want to take the territory, they also want to make sure that Ukraine suffers as many casualties as it can.
Now, trying to stand in the way of that mission is NATO, and the message that they've been sending from Brussels is that they are prepared to stand by Ukraine in the long run for as long as it takes, while boosting the production of weapons and munitions, which seems to be the problem right now. So how long can Russia keep up the fight?
I think Russia has prepared for a long game, and my view is that Russia is trying to bleed NATO in Ukraine, because Russia is producing a lot of ammunition right now. Its economy is in a war mode, which cannot be said about NATO countries. And right now, we're seeing that NATO is struggling to provide Ukraine with what it needs right now, and the U.S. is about to hit default. So the question is also of economic possibilities. Therefore, I think the Russian clock is ticking much slower.
Marina Moran, defense expert at King's College. Always good to get your view.
Thank you for having me.